Hi, I am Ili. I am an independent artist living in Istanbul, and this is my digital journal about my art, my daily life, my brand ILY SOLEIL, and my thoughts. Today, I want to tell you a story about Tatavla.
In my previous video, I mentioned a book called Tatavla History, and while going through the notes section, I noticed something interesting. It talks about a route that Ottoman sultans used when they were going from the palace to Okmeydanı for hunting and archery practice. And here's the strange part. The shortcut we used as kids, walking from our house in Kurtuluş to my grandmother's place in Okmeydanı, almost perfectly matched that exact route. This part in the book is actually a quote from another book called Constantinople. Just like Tatavla history, it was written around the same time by a Greek historian, and it describes daily life in Istanbul back then. Today, only the first volume has been translated into English. The other two are still not translated, and the route I am talking about is explained in much more detail in the second volume. So, I'll be telling you this story through the quote in Tatavla history. But before we start, I want to explain why I am taking you on this journey through my art. To be honest, I don't really feel like I belong to today's world. But don't think of this as nostalgia or some kind of melancholy. It's more about this conflict I feel around belonging and having roots. And that feeling shows up directly in what I create. I'm always trying to feel something and at the same time trying to connect myself to something bigger than me. Sometimes I feel like a bean that wants to grow roots but can't find its soil or its home. And that's why forms start to dissolve and different identities try to fit onto one body. That confusion, that feeling of not being at home, keeps taking me back to the past. Most of the time, I find traces of what I am looking for in my childhood. But even that childhood is not something I fully understand. The streets I grew up in were there long before me, and they were part of something much bigger. Today, they still exist, but in a completely different form, and in the future, they'll become something else again. But somehow, they keep existing, just like art does. The same roads once walked by a sultan can later become the path of a child and her mother. Things change, traces fade, streams go underground, but they never fully disappear. They're still there somewhere, and if you look closely, you can still see them. And maybe that's exactly what art does. It makes the invisible visible again. As an artist, I truly believe this, and I believe people can find their own stories inside these stories. So, if you are ready, our journey starts right here in Dolapdere. The book describes how the royal procession would leave Akarca, reach the top of the hill, then go down past a Greek girls' school, pass a church, and continue towards Karlık Hill. Akarca is now called Akalar Street. Back in the 80s, we still called it Akarca. It used to be covered with cobblestones. It looked beautiful, and honestly, it was easier to walk on. I don't even remember when they turned it into asphalt. We lived at the top of that hill on Direkçibaşı Street. My grandma lived in Okmeydanı. There was no direct public transportation, and my mother loved walking. So I walked that route many times with her. If I am still a good walker today, I owe it to the road and to my mother, and also to that little girl who used to talk to herself while walking. I still love you. Walking up These steep streets always bring back one memory. That plastic ball I insisted on buying and lost on the very first day. It rolled all the way down the hill despite all the warnings. I remember how angry my mother was and how I kept crying, saying, "My ball fell into the shitty stream." I don't even know if there was really a stream back then or if it had already turned into a sewer. But 100 years ago, there actually was a stream here. Its name is still the same. Cin Deresi. I mean, Spirit Stream. Very fantastic name, isn't it? Today, it flows underground, mixed with the sewage system. In the 90s, this area was an almost empty field. Almost everyone in Kurtuluş learned how to drive there. It felt a bit unsafe place, but I don't remember anything bad happening. This must be Karlık Hill. After crossing the stream, this area has been used as cemeteries for different religions since the 1800s. As a child, my favorite part was walking on top of the cemetery wall. I felt taller than I was, like I was about to fly. Different faiths are buried side by side here, just like in life. They remain neighbors in death. And strangely, cemeteries are still some of the only places in this city where you can breathe. I looked down from the hill. On the left, a huge construction site. The other side seems untouched for now. Urbanization is complicated. I'm not ready to talk about it yet. As I walk downhill, I keep thinking, why did sultans choose this route when there were easier ones? Was it a display of power passing through Tatavla? Did they stop and rest at Karlık Hill? Were the cemeteries already here? I don't know the answers, but the questions excite me. Each one opens a new path for research and for art. Eventually, I reached the main road. There used to be a large stream here. You could even come all the way from the Golden Horn by boat. There was a bridge crossing this point, leading to Piyale Pasha Mosque. The area was full of gardens. Today only one remains. The royal procession probably stopped here, rested, and prayed. My mother grew up in Kasımpaşa. She used to tell me how they played in this mosque's courtyard. 2 centuries ago, a sultan rested here. About 60 years ago, my mother skipped rope here. And about 30 years ago, I used this place as a shortcut. Today, it feels distant. I leave the mosque behind and walk uphill. This probably isn't the same road anymore. Buildings are stacked on top of each other, streets are narrow. This used to be a Gecekondu area. That's why urbanization here is layered and complex. Another deep Istanbul topic, but not today. It smells like fried dough everywhere. Probably several houses are making pishi, and that smell instantly takes me back to my childhood. My mother didn't like making this kind of food, but my aunt did. And honestly, nothing I have eaten since tastes as good as hers. One of the reasons I loved walking this road was knowing she would make pishi for me. Finally, I reached the top. Okmeydanı. I am at the crossroads. This is where our routes ends. My grandma is gone now. My aunt doesn't make pishi anymore. And this place doesn't feel familiar the way it used to. I close my eyes. For a moment, the sound of cars fades away. Nature starts to speak, and then I hear the sound of an arrow cutting through the air. And in that moment, I imagine the Sultan and his people starting their archery practice and hunting.